It's encouraging to see all of you here. My name is Nixby Klingenfuss Slider. I'm a proud, lifelong Oldham Countyan, and I will be serving as tonight's moderator for Town Hall. By the way, this is our first Town Hall, and we really don't know what we're doing, so. So we don't know what we're doing, but I like that. So Kentucky Citizens for Democracy would like to begin by expressing our gratitude for our local law enforcement, gratitude for our jailer, Jeff Tyndall, our sheriff, Tim Wakefield, and all of our local elected officials for their service to our community. Tonight, we will be discussing a critical issue impacting our community, which is the recent decision for Oldham County to enter the 287 agreement with the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, commonly known as ICE. It is our desire to shine a light onto what the 287G agreement is and the potential impacts on our community. This is an important moment for us to come together, listen, and exchange ideas on how we can continue to build a thriving community here in Oldham County. We encourage respectful civil discourse throughout this evening, as this is the foundation for meaningful dialogue and collective progress. We have attempted to structure tonight's discussion to promote civic engagement through civil discourse by providing an opportunity for everyone's voices to be heard. On that note, we do have a clipboard here, and we've got 13 signatures already of people that would like to speak tonight. So at any point throughout the evening, if you'd like to come and sign up, you're welcome to. And we just ask that the audience be respectful and treat all speakers with respect and civility throughout this town hall, as Oldham County is known to do. We will begin with an introduction of tonight's topic of Oldham County's 287G agreement with ICE by Executive Director of the Kentucky Citizens for Democracy, Michael Slider. He will explain to you the history of the 287G agreement, the reasons we are standing against it in our community, and how we would like our county to proceed. Following that, we will open the floor for public comment. During this time, you are welcome to ask questions of Mr. Slider regarding the agreement or simply share your thoughts and views. Again, please sign up on the clipboard provided up here. If you're not comfortable coming to the front, I can bring this mic to you. In an effort to allow for as many individuals as possible to be able to speak tonight, we ask that you limit remarks to a maximum of 3 minutes. I will be moderating tonight, and I will notify you if you have exceeded your time. At 8 o'clock, Executive Director Michael Slider will offer closing remarks. At this time, I'd like to welcome to the podium my husband and Executive Director of Kentucky Citizens for Democracy, Michael Slider.
All right. Wow, what a great crowd. Thank you all for being here tonight. Really appreciate it. This was supposed to be, our group was supposed to be a meeting in our basement in early February. And next thing you know, I've got a media person and I've got a tech team and we've got a website. And I'm like, what in the heck just happened? All right, but here we are. So this all goes back to March 10th. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to frame this issue for you and tell you why we're here. I think since we called this town hall, and I think it's important for you to understand the history behind it, why we're here, and what we're concerned about, and what we want. So anyway, March 10th, this article comes out from Louisville Public Radio that we are one of 3 counties in the entire state that has this 287G agreement with ICE. Well, immediately it raises my radar. I'm like, what? We have an agreement with ICE? We're one of 3 counties. Why? All right, we're not a border community. What does Oldham County need a relationship with ICE for? We have a small Hispanic Latino population, about 4% of our population. They work hard. They're good people. You don't see them in the paper all the time for crimes and things like that. One of the biggest crimes we have, if you want to call it, is that many of them, yes, we do have undocumented people, but it was because they were brought across the border when they were kids. That's their crime. And they grew up here, and they had kids who are citizens, because regardless of what our president says with an executive order, he cannot overturn birthright citizenship with an executive order. The founding fathers put in a process for that, for overturning an amendment, and you can't do it with an executive order. So yes, our kids here our citizens. They make up about 27% of LaGrange Elementary. Over a quarter of our population at LaGrange Elementary is Hispanic Latino. They are a valuable part of this community. In fact, after I heard about this and I started doing some research on it, I went to the sheriff's office. And Mr. Wakefield was gracious enough to meet with me on the day that I stepped in the door. Didn't even have to schedule an appointment. So I thought that was great. So an elected official, what they're there to do. So we met together, and so I asked the same question. I'm like, Mr. Wakefield, why? Why do we need to enter into an agreement with ICE, our community here? And anyway, he told me, he gave me a couple of reasons. He said, number one, that we have a detention center, which I will get into here in a little bit. And he said, number two, is that I want my officers, my deputies, I want them properly trained, so when we do run into undocumented people, they will know how to properly handle them and they won't accidentally violate their rights. So I'm thinking to myself, have we been watching the news lately? Have we been watching the headlines, what's been turning up every week? ICE is making the news for all the wrong reasons right now. Ever since they've been given their order to sweep up as many undocumented persons as possible, or as people would more negatively put it, illegals, right? Ever since they've been given that directive, I don't know if you noticed, but they've been sweeping up people left and right that are here legally. Guys jumping out of cars with masks on, taking people right off the street. What is this, America? That sounds like something Orwellian. I'm like, I can't believe this is my country that I'm watching this happen. We saw the guy the other day who has children who got accidentally deported to the notorious prison in El Salvador. We had a couple of people who were deported because of the tattoo that they had on their arm that indicated that they were somehow gangs, even though once the story actually came out, it turns out that wasn't the case. This is the ICE we're talking about. Back when I was younger, all right, you go back 10, 20 years, I didn't think anything about ICE. They were the Immigration and Customs and Enforcement. They did their job. That's what they did. But now they've turned into some modern day Gestapo, and I don't want to have anything to do with them. And I don't want my community to have anything to do with them. All right, so that's where I am on that. So anyway, when he said that, that's what I thought about. And then he also said something that really piqued my interest. When he said that, he only expected to get a few hits a year. A few hits a year, meaning that he only expected, when he was dealing with crimes, to run into an undocumented person in Oldham County a few times a year. So once again, like, why? What do we need this for? Okay, well, I do some further investigation, and it kind of ends up being the age-old story, follow the money. All right, so now I'm going down this rabbit hole, and I get into the history of our detention center, all right, our relatively new detention center. So in 2018, we opened a new $23 million facility, 380 beds with a capacity for 500. Now, keep in mind, up until this point, at the most, up and through 2016, I found the number. At most, we had only had 162 inmates at one time. And that was because we have a federal agreement going back to 1986. Yes, we've been taking in some federal prisoners for years, but the most we had ever had was 162. Now, unfortunately, in 2018, I was an administrator out in the West End busting it, and I had in my head in the sand, I knew they were building a detention center, but I just figured, hey, well, our old jail must have been like leaking or something, and we needed a new jail. I mean, I didn't know any better, right? And so, what piqued my interest when I heard this is we only had 162 at the most. Why all of a sudden do we need a 338 bed with a capacity for 500 facility? And by the way, I noticed that we were not the first ones to wonder about this. I actually pulled up film from WDRB back in 2017 where there was a group outside the prison protesting, right? And they were worried, turns out they were prophetic, they were worried that the prison would be used to swipe up immigrants. Interesting, okay? Turns out those words were a little bit prophetic. Not that our prison is sweeping them up, but I'll get to that in a minute, okay? But anyway, so now we have this huge $23 million facility that we've got to pay for, right? We got to fill it up, okay? So we have an agreement with 3 local counties. I learned all this as I went. Didn't know any of this. We have an agreement with 3 local counties, Henry, Trimble, and Scott County, to take in their inmates, taking a lot of them, and we get $40 a day per head for every inmate that we take in there. But the real moneymaker is on the federal level. We get $73 a day per head for every inmate we take in from ICE from the federal level. That's where the real moneymaker is. Now, myself, I'm not a huge fan, and I know there's many others like me that are not a fan of for-profit prisons. Okay? I don't know if y'all know this, but the United States incarcerates a larger percentage of its population than any other country in the world. I mean, even you think about countries that we think of as being oppressive, like China, Russia, a larger percentage of our population is incarcerated than any of those countries. And a big reason I believe is behind it is because these huge companies we have that own these for-profit prisons, they build them, then they got to fill them up. So what do? They go to state legislators and they get them to pass these tough on crime bills to fill up these prisons where you get more and more strict penalties for lesser and lesser crimes. And now you get the state legislator can stand up in front of his constituents and say, I'm tough on crime and all this, and it just is a snowball effect. Well, our detention center is not a for-profit center, but we sure as heck are acting like it right now, right? And I got a problem with that, especially when we're doing it with a relationship with ICE, okay? So that's one of my big issues right there. So we got this detention facility that we have to fill up, so we have this rider with ICE, and we're doing all this. Well, right now, as of right now, it might have already changed. I don't know when the purchase of these new vehicles came about, but we had 4 vans for our prison, for our detention center. Turns out, it's very interesting. If you go to the March 4th fiscal court meeting and you watch the video, you will see our jailer, Jeff Tyndall, great guy, love him to death. All right? You will see him go up to the podium and you will see him request a new van and a new bus for us for $278,000. All right, so we can expand our operation where we're running all over the Midwest picking up these prisoners from immigration and from the federal government. So we're going to Chicago, we're going to Louisiana, we're going to Kansas, and we're picking up these inmates and bringing them back to our prison because $73 a head per day. We got to pay off this $23 million facility. Hey, maybe make some more money. No, thank you. All right, if you want to make money for our county, you raise my taxes. Don't do it with a relationship through ICE and putting more people in our prison. Right? I know that our jailer treats people well and all that when they get there, but we don't know all of them how they got there. If you go to Jail Tracker, if you go to our prison's website and you go to Jail Tracker, you can click on each one of the people who are in there and you can go through and see who we have in there, and you will notice that we're getting more and more people from immigration. Right now, our prison may treat them great, but we don't know how they ended up there, and you see how ICE is acting right now. So probably, yes, I imagine, all right, who committed heinous crimes or whatever, but I bet you there could be some that shouldn't have been swept up in the first place, but they're in there, okay? And I've got, like I said, I've got a problem with that. All right? Now, let's go to the two.
Question. How much does it cost to keep a person? If you're getting $73 for each one, what does it actually cost?
I'm not qualified to answer that question. I don't know. I just know that we make money by getting, because you just pick up somebody in Oldham County, that's our tax money that's got to pay for that. But we get extra money for the people who are brought in on the federal level. Now, let's get to the history. Another thing that bothers me, let's get to the history of the 287G. I thought that this was a brand new program when I first looked at it on the ICE website. It turns out that this goes back to the War on Terror. It goes back to 2001, right, when these 287Gs first came about. I don't know if our magistrates and our sheriff's office completely did their homework, but the 287Gs have a troubled history. In fact, they had so many in federal investigations and so many court cases come against the 287G that in 2012 they were all but shut down. The infamous Sheriff Arpaio, if you remember that guy, from out in Maricopa County in Arizona, he had a 287G with a guy who made his inmates wear pink underwear, and he cost his city hundreds of millions of dollars in lawsuits because he was, he was not identifying, what's the word I'm looking for, racial profiling and all that, and got his pantsuit off and cost his city hundreds of millions of dollars. So those programs were almost all but shut down in 2012. Of course, when President Trump came in with his new directive. It was a great thing to revive this program. And if you think I'm the only crazy person who is just all of a sudden making up stuff about 287Gs, then right now I will tell you the state of Maryland has legislation on the books right now that's already passed the House to outlaw all 287G agreements in their state. So this is not something Mike Slider just made up, all right? So let's talk about the problems we have with the models that we're under. Okay, so there's 3 models available. If you sign up, if your local law enforcement signs up for 287G, and by the way, I will let you in on this. A month ago, or about a month ago, right after March 10th, when I got on the website for the 287G and the participating entities, it said our sheriff's department was listed on there. I looked at it about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and for some reason it had changed to the Oldham County Detention Center is now listed, not our sheriff's department. Why it was changed, I don't know, but it's changed there on their website. Okay, but you know, I talked directly to Sheriff Wakefield, and he didn't deny that they had applied for it and all that. So it's not a big secret what was going on there. So anyway, getting back to the 287G, one of the models that we've applied under is the jail enforcement model. Under that model, ICE sends us, we get a person from them, they put a detainer on them, and then under that program, we issue our own warrant to detain them and keep them. Here's the problem with that. You talk about the 4th Amendment to the Constitution, where it requires a warrant, is that once they issue the detainer, then it allows our agency on their own to issue the warrant and keep those people detained. Whereas if they appeared before a judge or a magistrate or somebody like that, they may make the determination that this person doesn't need to be held. They're not a flight risk, right? But now you don't have the choice, which totally goes against the spirit of the 4th Amendment with the warrants. Okay, the other problem that we have is now we're also under the warrant officer program model. And this is the one I told you I got a big problem with, because ICE does some training with our guys, okay? With the sheriffs, possibly the jailers, okay? And so they can serve their own warrant. So once again, it's the own agency issuing their own warrant, which totally goes against the spirit of the 4th Amendment. You're supposed to be seeing a third party about that warrant. So you're basically issuing yourself your own warrants after you've been trained by ICE. So, you know, Oldham County is traditionally a conservative community, right? Traditionally conservatives very much value the Constitution. And now we've got something that has been challenged in court as violating the 4th Amendment. We've got ICE running around violating people's rights to due process, 5th Amendment, the right to a speedy trial, 6th Amendment, people being detained unlimited time, and who knows how many of those we end up with, okay? And so I don't only think we're violating constitutional rights, we're violating human rights, right? And when we're part of this machine, okay? So now let's get away from just the legal aspect of the 287G, so let's talk about the impact on our community. My wife and I, and some others have been talking to some local charitable and religious organizations here lately, and the stories from the local area have been absolutely heartbreaking. So our Hispanic Latino community is scared right now. They're scared to go to public places. We have parents who are scared to go to court, not because their kids have committed a crime, because it's a custody case or something like that, and they're afraid to show up at the courthouse because they're afraid they're going to be deported. There was a mother who debated and debated. It was crucial that she show up to court for her son. I would hate to have to make a decision like this. She finally decided, this is right here in Oldham County, that she needed to pack a suitcase and take to the courthouse with her. My apologies, just in case she got deported. We had another family right here in Oldham County that we had some fools in the middle of the night come knocking on their door, pretending to be ICE, right? And they were terrified, and we have a charitable organization that essentially located that family, right? Our charitable organizations have said they've had to switch their tactics, and instead of calling people to public places to give them the aid, they're now having to deliver door to door because they're scared to come meet them in public places. So one of the other things I learned about the 287G is that there was a professor from the University of California, I can't remember the guy's name, who did a study in 2018, and he found out that if you had a community of immigrants, right, that had, and the local law enforcement had an agreement with ICE, then they were 61% less likely to come to law enforcement if there was a problem. So now we have all these law-abiding immigrants, we have all these law-abiding, our Hispanic Latino community, like I said, is very law-abiding in Oldham County. And now, if there is a crime committed, or there's something like domestic violence, or something like that, they're not gonna come to the police because they've seen the news, they've seen what's going on with ICE. ICE is very active in Louisville right now. There's been being people picked up all over the place in Louisville. They've been at the courthouse in Jeffersonville hanging out. And so, they have relatives that are in Louisville and all that. They are scared to death. And it doesn't help, even though, no, our sheriff's department is not going door to door and kicking in doors and dragging out people. And that's not what's going on at all. But still, just knowing that we have this relationship does not help that fear. Okay? So, by the way, you all, I tried to, because I had a hunch that that number would be hardly anything, I tried to get the number of undocumented persons who have been arrested in Oldham County within the past 3 years for a crime and detained. I went to the sheriff with an open records request. They said they couldn't get that number to me. I had to go to immigration. I went to the jail. They said that I needed to go to immigration. And I went to an unnamed magistrate, did not want to be named, who said they would try to find out for me, and they couldn't find out that number. I have a feeling that number is hard to find because I have a feeling it hardly exists, right? And they're sending me to ICE to get the number, to send an open records request to ICE. There's no way in the world I'm sending an open records request to ICE. You think I want to be on their radar right now? I'm not doing it. So, you all, with all this being said, our group is, we want this, we don't see a need for this agreement. We want this 287G agreement terminated as quickly as possible. And guys, we don't want our sheriff's department and our jailers, call me, I don't know, call me old-fashioned. I think that our tax money in Oldham County, they should be serving us, that we shouldn't be paying for new vans and buses for a shuttle service, so we can make more money for our prison. Like I said, if you want to make more money off me, raise my taxes. But I don't want to make money off what I would call an unholy relationship with ICE, because even as innocent as it may seem, it only affects our jail or whatever. I believe that an agreement, any agreement with ICE right now, damages the moral fabric of everything that it touches. And I don't want our community to have anything to do with it. So, we are calling for an end to the 287G agreement. We want a scaling back of this cooperation with ICE, right? And I don't think our jail and our sheriff's department should be used as a shuttle service so we can make more money for our jail. We want that scaled back. We have a petition up here that you can come at any time tonight when we're done or before you leave. It's up here on the table. We got some on the chair back there too, that you can scan and you can sign it electronically to end this 287G agreement with ICE. Okay? So, those are our concerns. I'm sure there are going to be other people who have other opinions and other perspectives, which is wonderful. It's what democracy is all about. That's what we're here for. I hope some people speak up on the other side. Okay, but that's why we're here tonight. That's why our group called for this town hall. Okay, so I'm going to turn it back over to my wife and thank you all for your time and attention.
Hello, I'm Alex Blunt. I'm going to talk fast and I have 3 minutes. First, let me start by saying thank you for being here. No matter what your views are on this issue, you stepped up, have your voice heard, and do engage with the perspectives in your community. That is what democracy looks like. It's not always easy, and it's often contentious, but it's better than the alternative. We are your neighbors. Our kids go to school together, play sports together. You may even have seen me chasing my son off the soccer field a time or two in the past couple of years. You've seen us at cheer competitions. My wife is part of the PTO at East Oldham. We want to be good neighbors, so I knew I had to come and share my perspectives because we genuinely care about our community. I had planned to talk more on the financial incentive of using our detention center to hold federal detainees, because I consider it what's known as a perverse incentive. However, as I thought about what I wanted to say on that topic, I realized I was avoiding a much more genuine but scary approach. I was avoiding sharing the fear my family and I feel due to the tactics of the current administration and ICE have been using to detain not just the undocumented people in this country, but also those here legally. As a man, and especially as a veteran, it's much easier for me to focus on an analytical argument about policy or the anger that watching the Constitution I swore to protect and defend from all enemies, foreign and domestic, disregarded by so many who claim to be constitutionalists. But as a son and a father, I know it's the reality of the fear that we feel that I need to share. And that is so much harder because that means admitting to being vulnerable in front of all of you. My mother came to this country from Germany at age 17 with her almost equally young husband, a soldier in the U.S. Army. I was born at Fort Knox shortly after that. She lived her entire adult life here in America and here in Kentucky. The only reason she's remained a permanent resident instead of becoming a citizen is that she can't bring herself to break her mother's heart. My grandmother, who still holds on to a little bit of hope that one day her only child will decide to come back home. But this is her home now. It has been for 44 years. My mother didn't have an easy life, but she did what everyone on the Republican side of this issue has ever asked of those who immigrate to America. She worked, she saved, she got herself an education. She used that to get a better job. She saved more. She bought her own house. She raised 2 sons who gave years of their life in service to this country. She even found Jesus here in this country. Yet today, the granddaughter of a man who helped Jews escape from Nazi Germany at great risk to himself and his family, is afraid that if she speaks out on what her heart tells her is wrong, she will be taken away and the government will take everything she owns. Right here, in the home of the free, the home she chose. She is afraid to talk to her coworkers who disagree with her about politics, and she's afraid to post anything on social media because she has watched this administration lock young men and women up and strip them of their green cards and visas for exercising their First Amendment rights. My father's a 20-plus year veteran of the Army. I'm a veteran of the Gulf War. I'm a veteran of Operation Enduring Freedom. My brother is still active duty Air Force with a handful of years to go before he retires. I ask you, is that what her work, hard work, and the sacrifice of the veterans in my family deserve? My stepdaughters attend East Oldham Middle School. Just a few months ago, before this surge in ICE activity, one of them had 2 boys.
Sorry, you're over time. I live in Oldham County, and I have 3 children here. I want this to be a safe community for everyone here, and I know you want that too. That's why you have common sense policies to round up the demographic most likely to commit violent crimes and sexual offenses before they even commit a crime. Just throw due process out the window, honestly. Which is why it sucks so much to be a white male, am I right? In the United States, the single demographic most likely to commit mass murder is a white man with a median age of 31. Who do you think it is for sexual assault?
White men.
Yeah, you want to take some guesses? You don't do it because I already heard it. If you're rounding up all the white men already, I mean, buddy, just keep at it because it's white men. They're going to be your top offenders for sexual assault. Just a little older because their average age is 37 for sexual assault. And 95.9% of them are U.S. citizens, just in case you were wondering. You know what? I got my notes mixed up. That's not who volunteering to work with ICE is going to round up, though. So silly me. It's brown people. My bad. I got it wrong. So working with ICE, volunteering to work with ICE, kind of feels to me like nothing other than good old-fashioned racism and apparently profit. Working with ICE in this capacity, and by the way, some folks who the U.S. has sent out of the country already have the legal right to be here. They have the legal right to be here. So by volunteering, our county has essentially raised its hand and volunteered to stand in line and assist with xenophobic policies such as 287G. We are better than this. The Latinx community contributes to our local Oldham County community, our Kentucky community, and more broadly to our community in the United States. They are part of our culture, They contribute to our workforce. They contribute to our economy. They are our neighbors, friends, patients, co-workers. They go to school with our kids. They sit at the desks next to them. They play with them on the playground. We have to rise above this bigotry. We have to think critically enough to rise above fear, above the rhetoric of us versus them, whichever small-minded person is trying to convince them who them is at any given moment. Whether it's women, Jews, people with disability, the elderly, LGBTQ folks, Irish citizens, Japanese citizens, Arabic citizens, or Latinx citizens. So I implore you, let's be better than this, because I know it's possible.
Hi, thank you so much for coming. I'm speaking tonight in support of the Latina community living here in Oldham County, and with deep respect for the ways that Latina culture has shaped and continues to enrich our country. I've had the privilege of knowing and serving many Latina families over the past 20 years as I have worked as an English teacher in Oldham County schools. I can say with full confidence that the families I know are some of the kindest, most hardworking, and most appreciative people I've ever encountered. They are people I want as my neighbors, and many of whom I call friends. They want to see their children succeed in school, and of course in life. They participate in parent-teacher conferences. They care about how their children behave at school, and they are grateful for a public education. These families are not criminals, as some would have you believe. Seeking a better life, fleeing violence, working to support your family, these are not crimes. They are acts of courage. I'm heartbroken as I continue to hear stories of fear from local families, including, as Michael mentioned, U.S. citizens within the Latina community. Families are afraid to leave their homes. Families are afraid to seek medical treatment for themselves or for their kids. And our neighbors simply don't deserve to live this way. Documented and undocumented alike are worried about what might happen. In a neighboring state, one woman was wrongfully detained and held for 10 days before the error was fixed and she was released. She was on her way home from work and had neighbors watching her children, including a baby that she was still nursing. Can you imagine the heartache and suffering she endured during those 10 days away from her children? Please don't let this happen here. Detainment separates families, and this fear of separation turns hope into heartache. Anyone who is not white is at risk and is likely carrying their passport or other documentation with them at all times. That is a tremendous burden. We must act now in support of our neighbors and our friends. Now is truly the time to be the kindness capital of the world, not the county responsible for a shiny new ice fan causing fear on our streets. In my home, in my classroom, and in my community, I want all to feel safe and welcome. And it is my hope that you want to keep Oldham County a safe and welcoming community.
Thank you for coming tonight. Good evening. My name is Darcy Lewis, and I've been an educator for over 20 years. And for the last 9 years, I've taught at Newcomer Academy. All of my students are brand new to the country and learning English. Every year, I watch these students take on tremendous challenges. They have a new city, they have a new culture, they have new language to learn. And every year, they are so inspiring to me. These students are some of the most respectful, most resilient, attentive, and eager learners that I have ever had the honor to work with. Their families are equally dedicated. They show up to all the meetings. They come to parent-teacher conferences. They want the same things we want for our kids to get a better education. These are the kinds of families we should be proud to have in our community. These are also the kinds of kids I want my personal children to be friends with. These kids bring kindness, resilience, and a strong sense of community to Oldham County and to our schools. I know many people here are guided by a strong Christian faith. So I'd ask us to remember what Jesus said in Matthew 25. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. If we're serious about loving our neighbors, we need to live that out, even when it's complicated or uncomfortable. So let's be the community that leads with kindness and compassion, not fear. Thank you.
I'm going to read as fast as I do when I call Rand Paul's voicemail. My name is Sarah Chu. I was born and raised in Oldham County. I love this home so much that it's the only place I wanted to raise my family. In 2008, I married my college sweetheart, who is a South African citizen. He was living here legally on a student visa. Upon receiving our marriage license, we applied for his permanent residence green card. We kept documentation for 2 years in order to collect sufficient evidence to remove conditions on his green card that would allow him to move toward the path to citizenship. We had 3 children over the next few years. Applying for full citizenship is a lengthy process that includes steep fees. Something as minor as a traffic violation can prevent immigrants from moving forward on this path. Accidentally leaving out evidence that we live together, such as utility bills and rental agreements, could have also been used to deny residency. We had friends in our same situation who, during their green card interview to verify the legitimacy of their marriage, were moved into separate rooms and asked to name their spouse's toothbrush color. Can all of you citizens name the color of your partner's toothbrush? In 2016, after Trump was sworn in, we were advised by our immigration attorney not to delay the process any longer. She even offered to pay our fees because she feared the lawlessness that guides this administration's approach to this issue could pose a risk to my husband, despite his being a law-abiding, hardworking contributor to our community. This was not alarmist thinking, nor did our attorney make a dime on us. This was based on the reality that racial profiling is the norm and due process was not being observed. My husband has brown skin and an accent and has been on the receiving end of racial profiling on more than one occasion. This is not the kind of behavior we should be tolerating from our people in power. It was a scary few months as we awaited approval, but in May of that year, he was naturalized. My relief was palpable. So I can imagine the fear that immigrant families are living in right now, even if they're undocumented, if they are living and contributing peacefully to our communities, then we should abide by the gospel admonition to love them as we love ourselves. Let them be, or even take it a step further, welcome them. As the scriptures say, in entertaining strangers, we may very well be in the presence of angels. How many of us know or have ancestors who know what it's like to have to flee an oppressive country, or wish to break the cycle of poverty for our families, or long for a nation that strives for liberty, just laws, and democratic processes? None of us wish to live in an area tormented by crime, but neither do any of us wish to live in the fear of being presumed guilty because of the color of our skin, our accent, our political opinions, tattoos, or immigration status. I'm of the conviction that we should be a sanctuary city at all times, but especially when the administration that's directing ICE has admitted to errors and are regularly bypassing due process. We're the county that claims one of our cities is the kindness capital. Sheriff Wakefield, I've entrusted my family to the care of this community, and I would ask that you would reconsider your cooperation with ICE. They are not acting in accordance with our values, and our officers should not be trained to emulate them. Documented or undocumented, the people of Oldham County should all be treated with dignity and given the opportunity to thrive, especially if there's no evidence of harmful criminality. I sincerely appreciate your dedication to protecting our community. I would only ask that all of us, documented or not, be given the same protections. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Renee Wilson. Like a lot of people, I've been working with immigrants for 25 years as a teacher, and just wanted to add a few points to the excellent arguments that are being made. One of them is that in Kentucky, people who've been denied documentation pay $37 million annually in taxes, including $17 million in property taxes and $20 million in sales and excise taxes, just in Kentucky. And in 2022, immigrants who are denied documentation paid the federal government $25.7 billion into Social Security and $6.4 billion into Medicare, even though they can't benefit from those programs. Here in Kentucky, immigrants are about 6% of the state's workforce. They hold 1 in 17 jobs. So to paraphrase the Hamilton mixtape, like immigrants get the job done. Then also, as those of us who teach immigrant kids know, we have small families. Some of us have no kids. The declining birth rates in America are leaving a gap that will need to be filled. And these children, and the immigrant children and children of immigrants, are the ones who are going to fill those jobs. Those children will be working at the hospitals, the banks, the schools, the businesses, and government of the future. They are the future of America. And right now, when we let ICE into the schools, into our community, we are traumatizing children. That is not a secret. If you ask kids in your class to journal about the book that we're reading, and what they journal about is fear of losing their parents, they can't think about math if they're concerned about what's going on at home. So let this be clear, that by inviting ICE into our communities, we are inviting trauma into our communities. And if you love any child anywhere, then you have to find some love for you for all children everywhere.
But I'm gonna get from my car, know your rights cards that I'll put up here.
Use your mic.
Know your rights cards that you could take and maybe hand out or educate yourself about things. My first thing is, no human being is illegal. I'm a therapist, and I've done a lot of trauma work. I worked at Fort Knox with traumatized soldiers. I did 4 years, all the mental health for Kentucky Refugees Industries, and I've worked with a lot of people from different countries. My husband's from Germany, and I have adopted children. So I have a lot of stories, and I hear these things, and there's a lot of trauma out there. Kids are really afraid of being separated. I had an immigrant family, undocumented parents in Oldham County come to me and ask me, they were afraid, this was the last time Trump was in office, asked me if there was something my husband and I could do to take their children if they both got deported, because their children are American citizens. Now, can you imagine having that conversation with your spouse and going to somebody and asking if they could do that? Terrible. A lot of trauma. So that's very upsetting. And it's not just undocumented. Well, it's upsetting really, thinking about it, but I had one of my children adopted, lost his job in the last administration because everybody that was born in another country, where he came from another country, was suspect and had to go through extra things of background checks and things. That was confusing and upsetting to him. That's nothing like what a lot of people are dealing with, but it can happen with lots of green cards and like what other people are saying. And no due process, which is really frightening for, I think, all of us. So, you know, the people I've worked with are very patriotic. They're so grateful to be here. They love this country. They know more about this country than probably most of us. And they're hardworking, like people have said. So I want to be a kindness capital, and I don't want to treat people this way. I don't want to traumatize kids. It's just, you just can't be doing that, okay? Like as Bashir would say, we can't be doing that. So let's, you know what, if fiscal core wants to go this route and continue this way, I say vote them out. You just cannot do it.
Hey all, privileged to get to be here and speak with everyone tonight. My name is Louis Snupp. I'm a father, local resident here of the Grange, manager of AI and data operations, and most recently 5051 Kentucky State Organizer. And the reason I give you all this context is each of those things shapes my perspective on this. being a manager of business operations may sound unrelated, but I will tell you, I've spent about a decade in the business world doing things like data analysis and understanding how the picture that the data paints lines up with what is actually happening within the business behind the scenes. And I think there's some context here that we need to all keep in mind, and that is that by linking ourselves with ICE through 287, we are also inevitably linking ourselves to federal actions and process more directly. Now, I don't know if you all have been watching the news lately, but there's an awful lot of things happening on the federal level right now. There are executive orders being passed that make all federal agencies dependent directly, accountable directly to the president, basically bypassing legislative and judiciary review. Whether or not those things still count really doesn't matter if they're not being enforced, right? Secondly, we've got the executive order that invokes the Alien Enemies Act, which is why we're able to do these warrantless public arrests. Lastly, we've got executive orders recently being passed that allow anyone who is considered associated with a terrorist organization, terrorist, air quote here, right, because that word gets thrown around a lot lately, is subject to arrest. And we have a press secretary and a president who are talking about looking at legal avenues to deport, a word which doesn't even make sense by its actual definition here, natural-born American citizens even, to El Salvador.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know about you all, but as a organizer of a protest group that is speaking out against the president peacefully and within law, we literally get permits approved by Frankfurt. Every time we do this, we've got a great relation with State Capitol Police. Whatever you all have seen in the news, like we're not some group out there trying to start riots, right? We are out there just trying to use our First Amendment rights and give people a place to speak. And frankly, I'm afraid that this is, you all can see me when you click through on that site at some point. You can see people like me on that site at some point. So I just want to end by reading a poem that I never thought would be relevant in America, but feels more relevant today. Let's just pretend this is a pause for dramatic effect and not that my page just stopped moving.
I'll pause the timer.
First, they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then, they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then, they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then, they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me.
Hi, I chose to speak tonight not just in support of my parents, nor am I speaking solely based on my own political beliefs. I'm speaking tonight because at its core, I see this 287G agreement with ICE as a moral and spiritual issue. Having grown up in Oldham County and with my family having a deep-rooted history here, I have always taken a great pride in this county, and have grown a deep sense of gratitude for the kindness and the sense of community which I've grown to realize are not found as easily elsewhere. I have always admired the plethora of God-fearing people and Christian ideals that shaped this county into the place I've loved growing up in. This is why it baffles me that the place I call home, filled with people who label themselves as Christian, would align itself with an entity like ICE that does not live up to the ideals of Jesus. I've witnessed so much hatred and harmful rhetoric directed at immigrants, people using the word immigrant like it's something malicious or shameful. What's been even more heartbreaking is seeing people who claim to follow Jesus, people who preach love, mercy, compassion, and grace, completely dehumanize those who've called this country home for the majority of their lives. Many of these individuals have raised children here and are legal citizens that have been passionate, hardworking, law-abiding contributors to this country. Yet they're being labeled as criminals, accused of stealing jobs and draining resources. In reality, studies show that immigration isn't linked to increased crime. If anything, it can actually have the opposite effect. Immigrants make up just 17% of the U.S. workforce, often filling demanding, labor-intensive, and less socially valued roles. These essential jobs create the foundation that allows many Americans to pursue more comfortable, cushy, higher-paying 9-to-5s. In the midst of all this debate and division, when everyone is trying to do what they believe is best for the country, I choose to turn to the simple yet powerful words of Jesus. We are all children of God, immigrant or not. So how should we treat our brothers and sisters? 1 John 3:16-17. By this we know love, that he laid down his life for us, so we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers. But if anyone has the world's goods and sees his brother in need, yet closes his heart against him, how does God's love abide in him? Leviticus 19:18. Do not seek revenge or bear a grudge against anyone among your people, but love your neighbor as yourself. Romans 3:23. For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. Matthew 7:12. In everything treat others the same way that you want them to treat you. Ephesians 4:32. Be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, as God in Christ forgave you. We must recenter our hearts towards these people that are just trying to create a better life for themselves. And as we continue to discuss this topic, I would just like to remind us of Proverbs 10:12. Hatred stirs up strife, but love covers and overwhelms all transgressions.
Debbie Phillips, 44-year retired educator. As an American taxpayer, I do not support my government arresting or targeting individuals based on their appearance, race, religion, identity, who they love, or gender. This country is founded on the principle of freedom and justice for all, not fear and discrimination. I refuse to accept a system that echoes the authoritarianism of Nazi Germany. If someone commits a crime, hold them accountable through due process, but stop the profiling. That is not the America I believe in. In 2024, 90 million eligible voters did not show up to vote in this country. Democracy only works when we participate, and that starts at the ballot box. Here in Oldham County, one party has dominated for too long, while 18,000 Democrats live in this county. We need you to step up and join us. And I yield my time back to Mr. Alex, and thank you for your service.
I told you about my mother. I'll tell you about my children. My stepdaughters attend East Oldham Middle School. Just a few months ago, before this ice activity, the surge in ice activity, one of them had two boys in her class bully her simply because of how she looks. They teased her, asking her if she had seen ice and if she had her green card, just because she looks different than them. By the way, her father is also a veteran. She has two grandfathers who both retired from the Army. This is nothing new. Same thing happened to my oldest child years ago, and the same thing happened to me. We've developed thick skins. But now we watch on the news as a young woman is surrounded by masked federal agents and swept off the street in a van, then flown to a prison across the country for the simple act of exercising her First Amendment right to publish an article in a university newspaper. And no one did anything to stop it. How could bystanders know those were legitimate officers? Because you could see a couple of badges hanging around some of their necks. I checked. You can buy realistic badges off of Amazon for $16. So why didn't anyone try to stop this young woman's apprehension? Because she looked different and dresses differently? Because she worships differently and is from somewhere else? Now the teasing for looking different takes on a whole new dimension, doesn't it? So I ask you, my neighbors, what would you do if you saw masked agents sweeping my stepdaughter into a running van? Would you say something? Would you try to stop it? Or would you assume they have a valid reason because she looks different than you and your family? Can you see why my family might be scared even though we are all citizens? And not just citizens, but a family steeped in decades and generations of service and sacrifice to our country and our Constitution. When we sit by and let dangerous policies and tactics like the ones we are seeing being used by this Republican administration and NICE continue, we endanger our own citizens and our own children. It's families like mine that are on the front lines of that danger, and not by our choice, but by the choice of those who will claim they are standing on their principles. But when your principles blind you to the danger of fellow citizens and legal immigrants, when they make you deaf to their warning cries and their pleas to slow down and think things through, when it makes you immune to their pain and fear, you are no longer standing on your principles. You are hiding behind them. So you don't have to face the cost of what you voted for because you think those policies and tactics don't affect you and your family and those who look like you. But when the least of us do not have the protections of due process, none of us have the protection. So I ask you, as your neighbor, to join us in our opposition for the sake of our families and community, and sign our petition to end our agreement with ICE. And we also ask you to talk to your neighbors, to your friends, to your community, to anyone you know. I have found over the past few months that a lot of people are willing to do something. They're just waiting for someone to show them how, to lead the way and speak up first. You can do that. Thank you.
We didn't plan this, but this is serendipitous because I wanted to take a couple of minutes to talk to the room about a topic that is very relevant to the discussion tonight, but also just to the concept of democracy and justice generally, and that's due process. Now, I know it might sound like a legal term that belongs in courtrooms or law books, but the truth is due process touches our lives in more ways than we may all realize. So what is it? At its core, due process is about fairness, making sure that rules are applied equally and decisions are made justly. It ensures that no one can be deprived of life, liberty, or property without proper legal procedures. In other words, it's a safeguard that protects us from unfair treatment and abuse of power. Let me share some examples of how this concept plays out in everyday life. Imagine getting a speeding ticket. Thanks to due process, you have the right to contest this speeding ticket in court. You can explain your side of the story. You can present evidence before an impartial judge. You can even dispute police testimony. If you're renting and your landlord wants to evict you, they can't just kick you out on the spot. Due process requires them to give you proper notice and allows you the option to challenge the eviction in court if needed. Miranda rights. If you're ever arrested, hopefully you're not, due process ensures that law enforcement informs you of your rights, like the right to remain silent and the right to an attorney. Eminent domain. Let's say the government wants to build a highway or a data center and need your property for public use. Due process guarantees that they follow proper procedures, notify you, and provide a fair market compensation for your land. If you're let go from a job, especially in government roles or unionized workplaces, due process often ensures you're given the reason for your termination as well as an opportunity to respond. These are just a few examples, but they highlight my point. Due process isn't just about laws, it's about fairness in our daily lives. It's what ensures we all get a chance to be heard when our rights are on the line. This is not just a legal concept, it's a constitutional promise that everyone, citizens and non-citizens, is entitled to fair treatment. As we navigate these many challenges in our community, let's remember the importance of upholding due process for all. It's not just about laws or politics, it's about trust, fairness, and the dignity that we owe one another. Thank you for your time.
My name is Bridget Carroll, and we are a military family also. We came here in 2003, military transfer. I have two daughters that are serving in the military presently, one that is medically retired, went to the sandbox 4 times in the winter, she's medically retired. 287G, cooperation isn't required, but it's the best thing for the police and the sheriffs to do. They're, and I'll go over a couple of pieces. I forget the name. What is your name? Sir, what is your name? No.
Mike's on.
Okay. Mike, when you were mentioning earlier about the Kilmer, Abago, Garcia, where there wasn't sufficient evidence to send him to CCOD, there actually was. The SCOTUS did a review of everything that happened, and he wasn't in MS-13 gang member. And was
That's full. That's not true. Absolutely not true. And SCOTUS just released it 9-0.
I'm the moderator.
I listened to everybody in this room.
Yes.
I was very respectful.
Yes, you were.
And I'm the only one that is I'm the only one that is brave enough to come up here with a different side, okay? I want to know your side. I want to listen to your side too. I'm here. In full disclosure, I am a distant family member of Lake and Riley. She was a victim of a sanctuary city, to where her, the person who murdered her was in New York. He was apprehended and he was let go. He came down to Georgia and killed and raped her. And so I'm here for the victims of some crime. Most of the people that are here, that are undocumented, are kind. They're good people. They want a better life. But there is some where there's a criminal element. Some of the data I do have here shows that there was 10.8 million encounters from 2021 to 2024, known encounters. There might be a small fraction of those people that might commit crimes. But again, as I said before, the police don't have to cooperate, but I would wish they would, with getting criminal elements out of this county, which is safe. The other thing that I want to talk about is Senator Grassley's report, which was a bipartisan report, where there were 500,000 children that were trafficked here in the United States. These children were, and I can give you guys all this information if you'd like. These children, they were given to different families. We don't know who they were given to. Many were given to people that they didn't know. They came across because the criminal cartel was running our border at that time. And so we have maybe a lot of vulnerable children here in this area. That concerns me. I am a DOT medical examiner, and if you know what that is, that's someone that does medical exams on people that drive trucks. And I'm going to give you a personal thing that happened to me, and that was I had a gentleman who came in to do a DOT medical exam. His ID did not look he came in first to have like a wound.
I'm sorry, your time is up.
Okay.
Would you like to add the demography?
Yeah, I just want to say that he gave me a fictitious ID, and within the next few weeks, he caused a major accident with a 3 people fatality.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is John Dethridge. I'm an employer. I have employed Hispanics all my career, 38 years. Great people, I love them. But what we're talking about tonight is not the people we live with, not the people that live here, not the people we encounter. It's the 11 million, or a portion of the 11 million that crossed over into our country over the past 4 years. Who deported more people? Obama or Trump? Obama. 11.4 million. You know, I applaud Sheriff Wakefield for getting more training. We have Interstate 71 right through the middle of our county. People from all over the country can be encountered here at our gas stations, restaurants. It's a safety factor. The flock camera down at the 5-star on Highway 329 flags criminals' license plates. And our police have to go get them. That's the way it works. So Sheriff Wakefield, who is in office, by the way, he's an office holder. It's not a department. He doesn't work for Judge Vogel. He's an elected office holder. Jeff Tyndall, jailer, office holder. County attorney, office. Coroner, office. Constable, office. They're not departments. They're offices. They're elected. You don't like them? Get out. You run. You take the heat. You make the decisions. Okay? It's about safety. If a person is detained in the jail, I don't represent Sheriff Wakefield, by the way. If a person is detained in the jail, just like the flock camera, if his ID comes back, he's flagged for a crime in some other state, then from what I understand, ICE can go get that person while they are detained, further preventing violence. Do you want a bunch of cops busting down doors at a residence with the rest of the family in there? No. If we've got the bad guy in jail, keep him. Transport him to where he needs to go. Don't endanger the rest of the family. That's all I got.
I didn't prepare anything. I didn't even plan to come tonight because I'm exhausted. I'm mentally drained. I don't have a lot of space for much else. But I've been a special education teacher for our most vulnerable population for 15 years. I've been asked a lot of things that don't really fall under my typical job description over those years. In my effort to support these families with students with the most complex needs. With all of the things I've been asked, I was not prepared for the text that I received from a former student's mother. Sorry, I'm shaking, you can hear it. When I was having dinner with my family on one of our snow days in January that said, "Help me please, ISIS here, help me please." I have no plan for what to do in that situation. That is not part of our teacher prep program, in case you're wondering. But knowing that this mother is a single mother with severely autistic children, 2 of them, and I can't get more details because I do protect the rights of students, unlike the rights of our population, I feel like right now. I drove out there and attempted to ensure her that she was safe, even though I wasn't sure that she was. We do not know if it was truly an ICE agent that was at her door, and that is part of the fear of what is happening because these individuals do not have to, ICE does not have to come with any evidence of who they are. They can wear plain clothes and drive in regular vehicles. We have such a terrified population right now that someone can impersonate an ICE officer and no one's gonna call for help. When our county is cooperating with ICE, they don't trust these officers. We have wonderful officers here that I trust. They work in our school system. They know these students, but these families will not reach out for help. They're vulnerable. I'm also the person who went to the courthouse with a parent who packed a suitcase, who was so afraid that when she went in, that she could not be going back home to her children of which were all born here, who are American citizens, who do not even have dual citizenship in Mexico. It is about the people here. The person who spoke before, respectfully, you said it was about the 11 million. It is about, this is Oldham County, this is about the people we know. This is about our students and their faces. And I always have said, if you all could just see the faces of these children, that is who is on my heart. And the fact that this mother is now trying desperately to take her children safely back to Mexico and feel safer on the other side of that border, which is, by the way, where she plans to go, is one of the 5 do not travel to states in Mexico because of high rates of crime and kidnapping. The fact that she feels safer there than she does in this town is something that I cannot fathom. I cannot wrap my head around it. These are our children. Her children have been their entire life here, and they don't even fully understand Spanish. And she feels safer traveling by foot alone into one of the most dangerous states across the border than she does in this city.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Peggy Morris, and I want to preface what I'm going to say with I'm not comparing the situation that happened to my family to what an immigrant lives with and the fear that they experience every day. I'm a mother of an adult child who is transitioning from female to male. If you would see them, it's very obvious. They look different. I was at a local restaurant a week ago here in Oldham County. With my whole family, we were at a table. We were not loud, we weren't drunk. We were just having dinner, enjoying being with each other. And my friend across the table said, everybody's glaring at us. And so I kind of turned around and then we finished and we left. And everybody in that room was glaring at us and shaking their heads. And I'm just saying this because, and I wasn't going to say anything, but you read that poem. And as you know, the Nazis, one of the first groups that they sent to concentration camps was the LGBTQ community. So what's next? You know, my child does not want to leave the house. She doesn't want to go anywhere in Oldham County. And we moved here from Virginia 10 years ago specifically to live in Oldham County. So I guess my concern is what's next for our people? You know, are they going to start deporting? Are people going to start coming after our kids in the LGBTQ community? And so that's why I decided to say something. It really was the poem that you read that really hit me. And again, I'm not comparing my situation to families that are immigrants, but I just want people to be aware there are a lot of people out in this community that are scared, including my family, and probably I think we're going to move from Oldham County just because my child does not feel safe. So thank you, that's all.
My name is Steve Wagner. Good evening. I'll try to be brief. I really have a question, not a statement. But let me summarize my personal perspective. To be clear, I am, in the strongest terms I could come up with, appalled by the behavior of the current ICE department and their conduct and their management. It's horrendous. That being said, I concur with those who are speaking of a concern with the violent criminals, citizens and non-citizens we have in our country, and I condone efforts to deal with that appropriately. And by that I mean in a way that we have a discernment of whether we're pursuing the proper people. That's that due process thing you all were talking about. Now here's my point and my question. I know 40 minutes worth of 287G agreements. I knew nothing when I walked in here. But I think I know this. We're not going to keep ICE out of our county. They're coming. They're here now. Are they here in this room? Any ICE people? Okay. Any Sheriff Wakefield here? Is he here? Or any representatives of his office? Or any magistrates or representatives here? Because my question is to them, and that is this. I think I would much rather be interacting with our sheriff's department on a local level than dealing with the ICE agents and their behavior. And I wonder, and here's my question, has anybody looked at these 287 agreements in such a way as to discern whether they could be drafted in a way, I see people that know, drafted in a way that we know we have input into them. You know, a lot of us know some deputies, and these people we run into at church, and we can dialogue with them, and we can go up and see them. And if somebody is detained, would they be detained locally until our local judges, federal or state, are looking at the situation? Which to me would be far better than this extrajudicial mess that's going on where people are being scooped off to other countries, or at least, no offense to Texans, but at least to Texas, where you can't get anything done either. So that's my question. Is there a flip of the coin here and an opportunity to improve our situation? Thank you.
I'm sorry if I get emotional, okay? I'm from California. My name is Julissa. I came out here to accompany my family, my sister and my mother-in-law. I used to go to and from Mexico a lot to be with my husband. Thank God I was able to bring him over. I cannot go to Kroger without people staring at me, staring at my husband in a very rude manner. My brother is also, well, my sister, for example, she is fair-skinned, light eyes, light hair. she can easily she can pass as being a white woman. Me, myself, I can't. When I came out here when I came with my son is 6 years old, going to be 7. He was a citizen. He came solely speaking Spanish. Thank you, Miss Dawson. She's my son's ESL teacher. I love my son, I love my family, but I live in fear because even though I am a U.S. citizen, there are people who aren't. And I thank God if stops me, I can get away. But what happens to those who can't?
Do you have a real ID?
Yes, I do.
Good. Because there's instances where citizens have been pulled over and real ID saved them from getting detained by ICE.
Racial profiling, that is what I'm worried about because there are people that I encounter and I just ignore it. But when I was in Kroger and a man was just staring down my family, who stared back? I did. Why? Because I have to defend my family. I have to love everyone who is willing to care about me, but at the same time, I have to defend my own. And he just looked, he knew he was wrong, and I just want you all to know that I really appreciate every single one of you who have gathered here today.
Appreciate everybody being here and sharing their thoughts, and as it should be in a democracy, we should hear the pros and the cons and different versions of how people see this. I see it maybe from a perspective of thinking back to the founders of this country, because I believe that everybody in this room believes in the Constitution and the rule of law. And that came because of the brilliant founders of this country, who had studied what had happened in other places, who saw what was happening and had happened in Europe, where monarchs, kings, queens could imprison you, or worse, on a whim, a perceived slight, a betrayal of their whatever, or you're just disloyal. And our founders made sure to ensure in our Constitution and those amendments that did not carry over to this country. And are we flawed as a country? Yes, but I'm telling you, it's pretty darn good, and we had a great thing from the beginning to get us off on the right foot. And the Fifth Amendment, which we all know, right? You don't have to incriminate yourself, right? But it also enshrines due process. And I would argue, with crime, we don't want crime. No one wants violent offenders on the, we all believe in that. But we all, as Americans, if we're truly believing in the Constitution, you have to believe in due process for all people. And that is inconvenient at times, and it can be a slow process. And I would argue the gentleman who is sitting in that El Salvadoran prison, which is one of the worst prisons in the world, read about it, how they are treated. I don't know if you all realize this, but just a half hour, 45 minutes ago, the Supreme Court has ruled that that man must be brought back. And I'm going to listen to what was said, because if due process was followed, he would never have been there. Never. And because I'm going to read it from there, the administration has conceded that it made a mistake in sending him to El Salvador, where it's being held in a notorious prison. But they also argue they couldn't do anything about it. That is an egregious error on our part as a country. We should be ashamed of that. There is no evidence that they presented that he was a gang member. They had none of that, and you can go read the filing to see that. It was some informant at a park that said something to somebody else that led to that. But nothing has been given in court to prove that. But if he had had due process, it would have been found out before he was sent off. So I'll leave with this thought. We're all Americans in here. If we believe in the Constitution, you have to believe in it all the time for everybody here without exception. Thank you.
Not really knowing what we were doing. I was just concerned with what I'm seeing. I retired 2 years ago from teaching in Jefferson County, lived here for 30 years, but I spent the last 2 years finding my genealogy. And I'm not sure I'm really here legally, but guess what? I'm not gonna get swept up because I'm not a person of color. I know for a fact my second great-grandfather stole his father's name in Germany to keep from being in the Nazi army. So, with that said, I am also a daughter of a farmer. And we all know that our farms have a lot of immigrants that are working on them. Legal, maybe. Illegal, maybe. But you all like to eat. So, there is some give and take here. Yes, we have immigrants here that are not behaving legally. We have laws that can be followed and take them back to their countries of origin. That does not mean ship them to some other country, but it does mean take them back to their countries of origin. When I worked in Jefferson County, I worked at a school that had 150 immigrants from all over the world. We had kids from Somalia that had come from refugee camps. We had Hispanic children. Those children and those families come to the United States in hope of a better life. They're here to grow their families, grow businesses, be loyal workers. They are working in jobs that most of us would not ever work in. I lost my place, so hold on a minute. They pay till Social Security. The answer is not rounding up people we know nothing about and deporting them to foreign countries not of their birth. The answer is to stop the circus, pass meaningful immigration laws like the bill that had bipartisan support in Congress a year ago. I expect the Oldham County Police to do the job of protecting the citizens of this county and not pander to the drumbeat of partisan politicians. We do not need to be involved in actions that could put our community in danger of being held accountable financially. We don't know if we end up bringing somebody from another place here and that was illegal, that we don't foot that bill. We foot a lot of bills that we shouldn't be footing, and this is one of them that we can't prove that we would not be held accountable.
Thank you.
Excuse me, my name is Laura. I'm just curious. I thought at a town hall, it was also the opportunity for the elected office to answer questions and clear up and offer another point of view. And I would like to know, was the sheriff invited?
So the magistrate and so the judge, yes.
So is and the magistrates were also invited?
Yes.
And who else was invited? The jailer?
Yes.
I thought I saw the jailer here.
Yeah,
Thank you for attending. We appreciate having you. I come from a military family, and my children have put their life on the line, and many of my relatives have put their life on the line, and I thought I lived in a place where due process was automatic. And I am very concerned that due process in our county that raises the flag on July 4th parade day more than any county in this state. Are we really following the Constitution? But I would really like to have the jailer, or I would love to speak, I would love for the jailer to speak on behalf of elected offices in Oldham County, and I would love, and I wish Mr. Wakefield was here as an elected office so that we could be transparent and converse with our sheriff.
This wasn't expected. The only person that I'm going to speak on tonight
is this person. The person that in the primary election, Oldham County voted in. The person in the general election that people voted in. I've been working at the jail since 1997. March of 97. I've dedicated 28 years of my life. I've dedicated 28 years of my life serving this county. I've also served 26 years, 5 years active, 11 years Army Reserve, 10 years National Guard in the United States Army. Any veteran, I thank you. Members of our community, I thank you. That's why I'm here. I wanted to hear. I wanted to hear each and every one of you. It's because I care. I wasn't the jailer when the new jail was built. I was the major. In that short period of just 7 years ago, I've seen the jail change. I've been through presidents, Clinton, Bush, Obama, Trump, Biden, Trump. When I was on the campaign trail, people asked me what my stance was. They asked what my stance was on all kinds of issues, both Republicans, both Democrats. My stance was to take care and love and make sure that when they come into the Oldham County Detention Center, they are being treated fair, firm, and consistent. I've heard people about racial profiling. I will not allow that. I put everything that I do into my job. The reason why I'm here is I care. This isn't a left or a right problem. And for me, as I told Mr. Slaughter 3 weeks ago, I know who you all are, but I didn't know who you were. Every time you called, I took the call. When you posted something that was wrong, I corrected it. I just helped you. Because I want the truth to be told. Just 2 days ago, there were a group of 11 immigrants brought into the jail. And I was on the phone with somebody that I'm trying to help Oldham County for the opioid abatement problem that we have in Kentucky. And while I was on the phone with the person, I asked her I put her on hold, and I said, I need to stop for a second. And I saw 11 immigrants in a circle in our booking area, standing there praying. But I see this with African Americans. I've seen it with immigration. I've seen it with our Oldham Countyans. That's something that I brought in. Care and compassion, treat people fairly. I know that people may not like what jails represent. I read about it, I educate myself. But don't you all want somebody that takes care of the people that are scared? Don't you want somebody that's going to offer hope? I can't tell local law enforcement, Kentucky State Police local law enforcement, Henry, Trimble, Scott, Oldham, Kentucky State Police, Federal, Immigration. I can't tell them who to arrest and who not to arrest. But I can tell you this, the reason why I ran this job for 25 years before I was the jailer, I love it. I wake up each and every day not knowing what's gonna happen. And I've seen the worst and the best of the best. Those that are scared, I hope they do get their right to due process. Jeff Tyndall doesn't get to decide that. Jeff Tyndall gets to decide how are they going to be treated while they're in Oldham County, whether you agree with the jail or not. Jeff Tyndall is here as an elected official for you. Jeff Tyndall is somebody who my family instilled family values. And I will make sure that everybody that comes in gets the same treatment that each and every one of you are wanting. If people don't agree with everything, you are correct. People have to go out there and run for these offices. But I will say this, I don't think that there's going to be somebody that's more compassionate and caring than your Oldham County Jail. And when you all hurt, I hurt. My son is a Spanish teacher at Oldham County High School. My brother-in-law is from Rome, Italy, and he came here and did it the right way. And we need to not only sit here in this room tonight and give our stories, but we also need to be out there helping those that don't know how to help. Be here legally. I haven't seen Oldham County arresting people that just the stories that we see on TV. But I've heard stories that it's happening. Not Oldham County, but it's happening. But we have, my job, we have to uphold the law. And I know it hasn't been mentioned, but there has to be the law. I don't know if we'd be where we were at if there weren't the violent people. 2 nights ago, our community faced a tragedy of 2 people from Colombia. Does anybody not know about that? This man has not been extradited from Indiana to my jail, but he will be here within the next week. And when he gets here, he will be treated just like the person that's been arrested for a traffic ticket. Because one of the things that I've always said, and I've learned to believe it even more, that I'm a jailer who loves what I do. The judges that we've elected in are judges to uphold the law. Somebody tells us what the law is. But I tell inmates this, when you're at your lowest of low, there's only one judge. That's the Lord Jesus Christ. I will continue to offer that, and I will be there for every one of our citizens, immigrants, and I thank you for whoever invited me up.
Sir, question. Thank you. If I may, a question.
You may.
Have you seen the proposed 287 memorandum of agreement?
Yes, I have seen
How do we get copies of that?
immigration.
Well, if you have it and you're a representative, are you not willing to share the copy with us?
I will talk.
I'll help you with it.
Who will you talk to?
Type in the number, hit go, and it will take you right to it.
I'm sorry, just clarify for me the procedure. Who are you going to ask if you can give it to me?
my county attorney.
Your county attorney? Okay.
There is a lot of, when any type of record comes through the jail, we ask for subpoenas and then we present it to our county attorney.
I understand.
And here's, the thing is, when I got up here, I'm free at any time to take questions, phone calls. Oldham County we've had a federal contract since 1997, the year I started.
And my next question is, as you've reviewed the 287 proposal, do you believe it would give our residents more due process than they would have if we don't do it?
I can only speak for the jail model.
It is a jail model.
There's two different models.
There are indeed, and this is a jail model.
Jail model,
And who is negotiating it with ICE? Is it the county attorney?
we talked to the county attorney, yes.
Is there a committee negotiating with ICE, or is it the full executive, or?
The, Oldham County has been, there's no contract with us, there's a federal contract. And that federal contract, we've been a 72-hour holding facility since 1997.
Well, what is being proposed as the next idea? Is there a 287 proposal being considered?
Have you read the 287G program?
A little, but probably not to your level. That's why I'm asking to be.
No, I know. I'm getting up here, thank you for inviting me again. I don't want to be misworded or anything. I mean, I will give you my card as soon as this is over and we'll talk.
Okay, but as our elected jailer, I'm asking if you feel that the proposal being considered would provide our residents with more due process protections than if we don't do it.
Like I said, let's talk. Yes.
I have a question. The 287G, is cooperation required? Is cooperation with ICE required? From what I read, what information I could get, it's not required, but it's the best thing to do. It's what's recommended, but it's not required. And it's legal speak. I may not be interpreting it correctly, but from what I read, it was it isn't required, but it's recommended.
I will get you answers if you'd like.
Thank you.
I have one question.
Yeah, I do have to end this now. We paid out of pocket, Kentucky Citizens for Democracy, for 2 hours, and we're running low on time. My husband is going to deliver some closing remarks. Michael.
So, first of all, I want to applaud the courage of all of you who spoke. It takes a lot of courage to get up here, especially the people who are in the minority. I applaud your courage to get up here and speak. Democracy is all about, right? You all, yes, the magistrates, the jailer, and Mr. Wakefield were all invited here. Okay, I want to make that clear. Now, when Jeff and I spoke on the phone, which I wasn't even going to tell you all that, I was trying to respect the fact that he kind of wanted to stay in the background. He spoke to me 3 times, and each time he took, we went about 30 minutes each conversation talking to each other as I was kind of investigating this. And because of that, he's a Republican, I'm not. I will vote for him next time he runs for jail. Because this problem is a lot bigger than Jeff Tindall. All right, he's a spoke in the wheel, so to say. Okay, yes, I believe he takes care of his inmates when they come there. What I have an issue with is that we've signed on this agreement with ICE, and yes, we were a pending application with ICE, and now we've moved from pending to approved. And so both the warrant officer model and the jail enforcement model have been approved, and we are under those models. In fact, I did not throw this into my thing earlier. If you now go to the ICE website, Oldham County Detention Center is listed as, under the Chicago branch, as an ICE detention center, which is something that I do not take pride in, okay? All right, so anyway, all right, they were invited, right? And I really appreciate that Jeff took the time to show up, and I really appreciate it, because I know he didn't want to at first, but I appreciate the fact that he got up here and spoke. Yeah, I don't remember the name of it. The third model is the most controversial one. That was the one that led to all the racial profiling and the things like that. Now, I told you, and I'm sorry that I forgot the name of it. I didn't memorize it because it's not the model that we're under. That's not the model I was concerned about. I've already given you my concerns with the other two models when I open this thing up, okay? All right, so I'm gonna end this by telling you what you can do, all right, if you're with us on this issue. All right, is that first of all, you can come get one of these sheets, they're in the back too, and you can sign the petition, the electronic petition to end the 287G agreement, which is what we want. We do not want any relationship with ICE right now with the way they're behaving. We don't want anything to do with them, okay? We don't want our jailers and our sheriffs, call me old-fashioned, I think that our jail should be to jail people who are arrested in Oldham County. Okay, that's what it should be used for. I think that our sheriff's department and our jailers, their time should be spent dedicated towards the people who pay their salaries with their tax money. We should not be running an ICE shuttle service around the Midwest. That's not how I want our resources used. So the other thing we've got up here is that if you are interested in what you've heard tonight, and you are interested in being, seeing what we're up to and being part of the Kentucky Citizens for Democracy, there's also a thing on here you can scan and you can sign up to be informed. There's also a thing on here you can scan with your phone that takes you to the link where you can call the magistrates, where you can get their email. It takes you to that page where you can contact all of them, because they do approve the budgets, right, to run all this stuff. They approved $238 for the new van and the new bus. So yes, they're part of this, okay? And once again, I want to emphasize that I assume best intentions from everyone. I assume that our jailers are there because they want to serve Oldham County. I assume our deputies are there because they want to serve Oldham County. I assume our magistrates are there because they want to serve Oldham County. We have a disagreement with the philosophies behind this and a series of decisions that was made over years. And that honestly, I don't think there was much community input. I can't find much record that people asked for community input on this, right? And there should have been, okay? If you want to join the Kentucky Citizens for Democracy private Facebook group, we have a thing on here you can scan for that. You get on our Facebook group. You can call or email the sheriff. There's a number on here where you can do that. So these sheets are in the front, they're in the back. You can get those, and wow, I really appreciate you all being here, and the people especially who have the courage to speak. Yes?
Just a quick question. Is the sheriff the one that signed the agreement? I mean, is he solely responsible?
Yeah, so I went and spoke to, and he's an elected officer, right? He has the right to do that. He doesn't have to get the approval of the magistrates, but magistrates pay, they pay the bill, the fiscal court and all that. So yes, when I met with him, he said, I said, why did you enter into this 287G agreement? He said, first of all, because they asked us. He said, like I said in my opening speech, second of all, because we have a detention center. And third of all, because he said he wanted his deputies trained properly so they wouldn't accidentally violate the rights of the undocumented, which I've already told you my issues with that.
So he on his own could change this directive, is that
Yes,
correct?
yes, that's my understanding.
The sheriff alone can change all that.
That's my understanding, yes. Okay? Yes.
The magistrate Bob Guy,
Yeah.
I did have an extensive conversation with him.
Yes.
He asked that we send some questions ahead of time so we can prepare, but he is very willing to answer questions.
Okay.
So, I highly recommend giving him a call. He'll call you and talk to you.
Also say the name slip of mine, Kevin Woosley, who used to serve on the Board of Education. He is very open to talking with people. I don't know a lot of the other ones, but he is the one that's very open to talking with people. Okay, yeah, yes.
And I'm sorry, I probably am the only one in the room who doesn't understand this, but from talking to Mr. Tyndall, he explained there's been a 287 type agreement with the federal government for years.
No. That's not what I understand. We've had a rider with ICE and all that, and we've had an agreement with the federal government for years to, yes, to take in federal prisoners. But the 287G was pending before March, and my understanding is it got unpending, it became an actual agreement in early March.
Your understanding, and it's been approved.
Yes, because we moved from the pending to the not pending when you go on the 287G website.
Do you have an understanding of what Mr. Tyndall says is being considered now regarding the subject?
Being considered now as far as what, refresh my memory, what he said?
287, some sort of supplemental 287 arrangement.
No, I know
That
nothing
the
about
county
it.
attorney's deliberating on.
No, I know nothing about
Does
it.
anybody know?
No. It could be a good question for your magistrate, whoever else. Yes, ma'am.
You said that there are different models to this,
Yes, there's 3.
so do we know which model we?
Yeah, I said that in my opening, yes, the warrant officer model and the jail enforcement model are the 2 that we're under.
Okay.
All right? Currently, yes. Okay, yes, sir.
I hope all you guys are just as passionate about the data center.
Yes. Amen.